So we're often being asked to do more with less, right? Let me ask you a question. As a new leader, did you get asked to maybe do more production, maybe with less staff, maybe with equipment that we can't afford to buy? We're going to talk about today, how do you balance the organizational goals with the balance of employee engagement and having your employees feel valued? My name is Kelly. I was a nurse to CEO, and my mission is to help you get the life and career of your dreams. So this is a real struggle, right? Especially actually in any business, but I think we're all feeling that pinch now. Wages have gone up. We have more people that are choosing to work maybe remote. We're having people being asked to do more with less. So how do we combat that? One way to look at that, first of all, is to really sit down and think about what are your goals. So whatever leadership role you're in, what are your goals that you are responsible for to align with the organization as well as with your employees? Number one. Number two then is you really need to work through the strategy about how best to do that so that your employees and your team feels very valued and engaged. Let me ask you if you've had this scenario before, or maybe you're having it coming. You have a production you need to meet. You have a deadline you need to meet, but you have multiple people maybe that had requested some time off. They had requested to use vacation all in the same time. That's going to maybe hinder the production that you need. How do you handle that? Number one way that you could do that is you really need to open up communication. You need to share the story as to why it's important you get the project done, you meet the deadline, or you get whatever work is necessary. Everyone needs to have a clear understanding of the why. One way you also can approach this is you could have one-on-one meetings. You need to be meeting with your staff, with your team, one-on-one regularly. It could mean, if it's a smaller staff, it could mean daily. If it's a larger staff, it could mean monthly, or maybe if it's even very large, quarterly. But here's the thing, you can't wait until the project needs to be done to do that. You need to be having and building those relationships with your team before you ever need extra from them, because that's how you gain trust. That's how you gain respectability. That's how you gain credibility when you need them to do something that maybe they really don't want to do, like maybe they need to reduce their paid time off for that production. So in this scenario, if you really need something more done with less, the number one way you're going to get your team to surround you and feel empowered and get it done is by building that trust and having one-on-one connection meetings with them regularly, not just once a year at their evaluation, will gain you that trust in you when you need them to do more. What about if you don't have enough staff, you need to do more production, and your revenue is down? We are all seeing it right now, right? Expenses are higher. It's costing us more as companies to do more. We know that there's a workforce shortage as turnovers have been high, in particular the past couple of years. But you also need to maintain that production. Again, assuming you've built those relationships with people, and if you haven't built those relationships, we can talk about that in another video. So comment below if you'd like more information about how to connect with your team to build trust, and we'll do a video about that or a podcast about that. But assuming you have some of that trust and credibility as a leader, you also can do the team meeting, right? One way to gain input into how do we do more with less, how do we do more with revenue is maybe not there for various reasons, is you have a team meeting and you elicit their input. You ask their opinion. You would be surprised by just brainstorming in a team together how you can get ideas to maybe be more efficient in areas, or maybe we cut waste where certain projects can wait till later. You as the leader need to understand you're not going to have all the answers, but your team likely will have many answers for you guys to look at, for you to look at. So it's extremely important that not only do you have regular one-on-one rounding meetings, but you also have group meetings where you're getting their input and understanding what are their ideas to be able to do more with less, as well as Don't underestimate your team being your billboards. If you are trying to recruit other people, one of the most valuable ways you can do that is have your team just talking glowingly about working either for you or for your company. Those are individual billboards. Those are individuals that are out talking. If you are somebody that, and as a leader, you need to remember this as well. If you go home or you're at the coffee shop or you're at the downtown restaurant and you're like, oh, we're so short-staffed, we're having to do XYZ production, and then you're wondering why people aren't applying, that could be why. Because I guarantee Joe Smith down at the coffee shop may be saying that to others. You don't want to work there because this is what's happening there. Versus if you are out on either social media or in a coffee shop, if we use that same one, saying, wow, yeah, we're a little stressed, but wow, our company really values us, or our leader really values us, or wow, they really talk to us, even though we're short and we're not doing what we need necessarily production-wise. They're asking our input and they're meeting with us regularly so we all understand what's happening. That actually goes much further, and somebody else that maybe not receiving that in their company may say, hey, that sounds like a company, even though they maybe aren't, it's not going to be perfect, and nothing is, but it sounds like they really value their employees and at least talk to them. That may be a company I want to work for. So those are things that you really need to work on, and certainly ahead of time, but will also gain you value when you're having to do the tough decisions. What if your revenue is down and your expenses are high and you have to make some adjustments with your staffing? Again, this is where you may need to meet individually if it's a tougher conversation, or you bring the group together and you talk through, what if everyone shaved off an hour a day? What would that look like with our expenses? And this is assuming they're not salaried employees and that you have the authority to do some of these things. And many times as directors, we do. Even if we work for a larger corporation, we have some autonomy to work through, if you're an hourly employee, reducing some hours. So maybe you bring the team together and you explain the why. And this is assuming you have some trust and relationships with those people. And you say, look, here's where we're at. This is really going down a path that's not sustainable, just like in your own home. If your expenses go up more than your paycheck brings in, you're going to have to make cuts in your own home in order to sustain your home, right? So use that example to explain to your team, to your employees, why we have to make adjustments. We want this corporation to be sustainable for all of us, so we need to make some cuts. What does that look like for you? First of all, elicit some ideas if you have that opportunity to do so. Perhaps, like I said, it may be, maybe if we all leave an hour a day, yes, you would have, if you would do a 5-day work week, 5 hours off of your paycheck this week, but long term, we can prevent layoffs. Perhaps that's a solution. Or maybe it's if everybody takes, 4 hours and uses 4 hours of their vacation this week, we're going to save this off of our expenses. So really look at, it doesn't have to be all or nothing sometimes. It can actually be little bits of change with bringing your team around that actually can help the organization and the goals you're trying to meet and help the morale of your team as well. So why is this all important? Again, when you're trying to walk that balancing tightrope of business corporation goals and perhaps, particularly when things are not going the best, with employee morale and burnout and productivity, it really can sometimes feel like that balancing tightrope, right? You need to share the story. You need to be communicating. You need to be connecting with your team regularly. This is not, like I said, this is not something you wait till the sky is falling to then come and talk to them, because the trust and credibility is not there. You need to be following a process. Sometimes we really get into this rut because we're kind of willy-nilly doing things without a clarity strategy about what it is we're doing, what it is our team is doing, what goals we're trying to reach. And so being very clear on that process and having your team understand that process also helps as well. You need to be holding yourself and others accountable. So whatever you all have agreed to, whatever strategy that is, and sometimes it may mean your team is coming up with some out of the box thinking to help with productivity, you need to be holding then yourself and the team accountable to whatever that was. And then as well as the accountable to whatever the result was. And again, I say yourself, because if you're not holding yourself accountable as well, then how can you hold your team accountable? You need to be relentless and creative. So this really does take, when you're having challenging times and balancing that tightrope of both, you need to be creative and you need to be relentless. Don't let, oh, we've tried that before, stop you. Because perhaps you did try it before, but you need to take out maybe your notes and your minutes from before and learn from our failures in the past to find out what can we improve on to maybe have it work the next time. Use your resources. Perhaps you have equipment that's causing this productivity to be low. And you need to be the advocate to say, okay, we're going to spend these dollars on this particular equipment because after all that we discussed, we realized that's the area of resource that we need. Then you need to communicate that and come up with a plan for that. So work through, what does that look like and how do you get to that process? You can't give up. You need to be continuously working through, because there's going to be ups and downs for everyone with this, right? And it doesn't matter what company you're at, if you're self-employed or work for someone else, there is ups and downs, and you need to push through the downs to get to the ups. And then finally, and this is not last but not least, because this is actually equally as important as communication, is you need to recognize. You need to recognize and reward your team, those members, on the ideas that they had. Recognize them, give them the credit for the idea or whatever they had. And not only give it to them in front of the team, but give it to somebody else who may be above you. Maybe it's your leader. Your trust and credibility will go so much further if you have integrity and you say, oh my gosh, to maybe it's your boss or it's the owner, you would not believe the idea that Susie Q had for this. This was all her idea, and the team just embraced it and we moved forward. The team will work so much better and have so much more production and employee engagement if you recognize often and celebrate those victories. If the team did whatever it was, if they decided to do rotating schedules to get a deadline met, so that they could get their vacation when they wanted, you need to recognize and celebrate that with the team, because they took time off of their schedule to rotate their schedule in order to meet that deadline. So again, that will go so much further for you in your company in balancing the goals and balancing employee engagement than most anything else will. If you found this helpful, please give me a like and subscribe. It really helps move my channel forward. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, if you can go and give me a review, I would really appreciate it. It really helps move forward on the podcast up the charts as well. Thank you, and we'll talk soon.